Hey everyone, welcome to the final example, which is growth marketing for a consumer mobile app. This is my personal favorite, and I think everyone will enjoy this because almost all of us use consumer mobile apps, right? So social media apps or EduPops is something that I've been working on recently, and that's one place where I've executed a lot of these different things. So on the awareness phase, Swati, this one I'm going to speak a little bit more because I want to share what I've learned from building EduPops. But when it comes to awareness, we look at a lot of ways to show up like our app listing, whether it's on iOS or Android. We want to show up the app listing to people, right? And that's done by a process called App Store optimization. And of course, you do it on the channel, which is the App Store, whether it's iOS or Android. We also do other things which are similar to what we discussed before. Influencers are a big part, specifically for EduPubs because we have creators on board. And then we measure things like impressions, App Store rankings, how high are we ranking in different categories on the App Store? How much traffic are we getting as a result of that, click-through rates, etc. Once we are in the acquisition phase, in our case, we offer a free app, of course, but it could also be a free app with in-app incentives, or it could be a free trial with people having to sign up at the end of the free trial, but in some way getting the information. One interesting experiment that we tried out with EduPops is you could use the app without signing up, but after you get a feel of the app, after you scroll a few videos, etc., you can then sign up. So it's sort of a overlap between activation and acquisition, which is something that we tried, which is interesting. So like I said, don't be very rigid about these stages. You might want to try some onboarding app tutorials. And in a lot of consumer apps, you'll see that the activation could actually come before acquisition, right? So before you ask for an email ID, you might be activating them first by showing them a tutorial. You might have seen these apps which have those onboarding screens, like skip the tour option, but then tour. And only after you take the tour, you have the option to sign up. So you're sort of giving them a taste before you acquire them. But this works really well for apps because you've already, in some sense, acquired the user by the fact that they have installed your app on their phone. Right.
Yeah, so it could downloading the app could be acquisition and getting the email could also be acquisition, right?
Correct. Both of those. So number of downloads, email signups, etc. And then there is this first key action, right? So let's say making your first tweet, making your first post on Facebook, in case of Facebook, adding the first person in your network, filling in your LinkedIn bio in case of LinkedIn, for example. There will be some key actions that you will define. And once the user has made that key action, they'll be activated.
Right.
It could be a series of options if you want a deeper activation metric as well. So, sometimes people install the app. We have to send them a push notification to get them back. And that's sort of a tool that we can use for activation as well. Then when we come to retention, we are looking at, things like gamification work really well. I've seen when it comes to some of those consumer apps, specifically where the user have to take action, but making sure that you have enough updates on the app so that you're solving the issues that customers are facing. If you don't do that, they are obviously going to look for alternatives and you'll have a high churn rate, basically high number of people leaving the app. So this is very common, especially with free apps, right? People are installing a lot of different apps to solve some problem, and then they would remove the apps that they don't like, and then just keep the apps that they like. And within that, if they don't get updates or they don't have enough incentive to keep using it, they'll just eventually, get down to one app for one purpose. Like no one wants 10 apps for the same purpose on their phone, right? So that's where, retention comes in. Email marketing is interesting. So typically when someone signs up on our app, what we do is we have a series of welcome emails that we send to them.
Okay.
And that's eventually supposed to get them back to the app. So there is a deep link that we add. When someone clicks on the email, they get back to the app. Okay. So that's something that we do for retention. These are also key metrics for investors in case of mobile app startups, like daily active users, monthly active users. And then you have a DAU/MAU, which is a ratio of the daily active users over the monthly active users. These kinds of metrics help you measure the retention in case of mobile apps. And of course, how much time are people spending on your app session length, and your session frequency, how often people are creating new sessions on your app. Now, in terms of revenue, we have in-app purchases, we have the subscription model, we have ads, And we use different pricing strategies like tiers, offers, deals, etc., to improve the revenue. And we look at metrics like ARPU, which is the average revenue per user. So let's say if we have a combination of this, we have free users who can do in-app purchases from time to time. We have subscribers who have to pay monthly, sort of like a retainer. Then we have ads, people might click on it. Now you have all of these different monetization strategies. So eventually you'll have to have one metric that brings them all together, which is the average revenue per user, right?
Okay.
So whether you're making money from that user by them clicking on the ads, or by the fact that they've actually subscribed to a plan with you, or by them having to make a purchase, you will eventually have to calculate, okay, if I have X number of users, per user, I make $5, let's say.
Okay.
Then you'll have some sort of visibility of how much money you'll make if you have 10,000 users, or if you have 20,000 users, and that gives a signal of importance and revenue potential of your app to investors and yourself as well, right? So again, with specific, this is more generic example, but if you specifically do only ads, then you might want to look at just the ad revenue. If you only do subscriptions, then you might want to look at the renewal rate of your subscriptions. So the metrics would also depend on which of these monetization strategies you're following for the app.
Okay. Okay.
Right. Finally, we have referral. So since we are talking about consumer mobile app, we can borrow some concepts from the B2C e-commerce as well. So we're looking at UGC content. We are looking at obviously testimonials. A very important factor when it comes to apps is the App Store reviews, right? So typically, what happens when you install a mobile app, right? What do you look at before you install a mobile app?
So on my app store, I look at the rating and read the testimonials. Yeah, that's the first step, of course.
That's pretty much the standard thing we all look at. So this referral then feeds back into the acquisition, because if people see that you have a good rating and enough reviews to back up for that rating, then they're more likely to install the app. Your conversion rate on your app listing page will be higher. And see, when it comes to digital marketing, the most important things are having a good conversion rate on your app store, and then just running ads, which are optimized. But when it comes to growth marketing, you also have to have a good activation rate. You also have retention rate. You have to be making enough conversions to revenue. And finally, you'll have to have a sizable audience, a segment of your users that is able to refer other people, and then check the viral coefficient of your app or the referral coefficient of your app based on that.
Okay.
Right. So that's the growth stack for a consumer mobile app. And with that, we complete all of the examples of applying growth marketing to 4 different kinds of businesses. And of course, there are more kinds of businesses that we may not have discussed, but I think these 4 would cover a lot of startups, businesses, and people who are working with different companies who are watching this course. So that's all for today, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks, everyone.